TP5, how people are now guessing.
Mm-hmm. TP5.
Is that the one that has the lines on it or the dots on it? Do you add those yourself?
You can get those, but I do not have that.
They actually sell them with the lines now. Why not?
The little designs and stuff on them.
That's ridiculous, Harry. I hate to rip golf, man.
Yeah.
I hate to rip it.
T-Mac's ready.
Let's go to a man who's got more important stuff to worry about. He hasn't opted out of this show today. He is the great T-Max. Tim McManus of ESPN trying to keep track of who opt out and who's still staying as training camps start to open up and players start to trickle in. And he is here in Philadelphia getting ready for a couple of Zoom calls today. T-Max, how are you, pal?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Beautiful, man, beautiful. Marquise Goodwin is the Eagle to opt out so far, and, of course, he was picked up from the Niners, and now he and his wife have had 3 miscarriages and just had the birth of a baby boy, so he opted out earlier today. What else is going on there before we get into some of the other, like the Patriots, with 6 opt-outs already?
Yeah, and this is even before the actual time, the 7-day window that they have, and so it's perhaps an indicator that there's going to be plenty of these before it's all said and done. And a lot of guys are weighing kind of the risk that they're putting their families under versus playing. It's a tough decision for all these guys, Tony. But like you said, Marquise Goodwin, he has a brand new baby daughter at home. They have had that history of miscarriages in their family, and so he's playing it on the safe side. And meanwhile, this is the first day for the guys that aren't opting out to report to camp, but really report just means get tested. And actually last night, the NFL altered their protocols. It was going to be that you were supposed to get 2 tests before you were allowed into the facility, and now it's 3. So they have to go through 3 separate tests before they can even get into the building in a few da's.
Well, that's what I allow for Harry. When Harry comes in here, I test him every day, and the rest of the crew down here in the wine cellar, Tim. You never can be too safe, man. And Harry was going to opt out to play 36 today, but he decided to come in and do the show.
You know me, Tim. It doesn't take much for me to opt out.
I know that's right.
All right, now we got a story that another Eagle wide receiver has been put on the PUP list, right? Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, the Eagles just announced that Alshon Jeffrey is getting put on the active PUP list. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to miss the first 6 weeks, but it does kind of at least put him in that camp and give the Eagles that option. And we've seen that through training camps in the past where players who have a chance to be in that category and miss the first 6 weeks get put on PUP. As soon as you take them off, you eliminate that possibility. So they've put him on there. And I think it's safe to say that he's probably in jeopardy of missing some games early, and so they at least have that option by putting him on this list.
Now, I know you don't like lists, Tony, but if there was ever a list that best describes this show, it's the physically unable to perform but active list.
Exactly right. As the great Kenny Mayne at ESPN would say, I'm a senior, but I'm active. When they used to call the senior tour before they changed it to the other stupid name, the Champions Tour. Give me a break. All right, Tim. So that's, again, when people hear that, the physically unable to perform list, because veteran players don't want to go to training camp. Now there's no exhibition games, and so this wasn't Alshon's decision, right? So he still is not 100% healthy. That's why they had to do this?
He's not. He had a Lisfranc surgery towards the end of last season, and he's been on the mend since. And I've been in touch with people around him, been training with him, and they sent some photos over where he's looking like he's rocked up. And it was probably a month and a half ago, was about the time where he was just getting back to running, or maybe a month ago. And so I think that he's still on that kind of slow crawl. And it's one of those injuries where it can take a long time. And he's a veteran wide receiver. So while he's putting in the effort, and he's got a pretty sizable chip on his shoulder, according to all accounts, to go out there. I mean, let's see if he's able to be able to physically do it and do it at a high level that he's accustomed to. So there's a question mark over him, Tony, and then there's also the question mark that gets presented with the void of Marquise Goodwin now. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, you look at it, and the Eagles were quiet in free agency. They opted to go the draft route and the trade route with Goodwin, and you just wonder whether that's going to come back to bite him now.
Well, you see what's happening. Harry and I just saw the tweet, and Ryan Rothstein saw it. Guess who just jumped into the fray? No, not Terrell Owens, who a lot of people saw run a race and say he still got it. Chad Ochocinco now says, put me in the mix in Philly. He's ready to play.
I think T.O. ran like a 4.4 in that race, didn't
Yeah,
he?
exactly.
Get him in there.
I think that was
46
wind
years old.
dated, though.
Was
Tim.
that wind dated?
I think that was wind
Yeah.
dated. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was official like laser clock they had going for him.
Plus,
either.
I want to see him do 100 sit-ups in a driveway over in Morristown, New Jersey, before I'm convinced he can still play. Tim.
We're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of that.
Is that right?
Fact.
Will you be
August
doing a
10th,
30
yeah.
for 30 on that, Tim? On ESPN?
I just might be.
All right, Tim. The big story, though, obviously we're giving you the local angle here, but the Patriots, 6 guys opt out, including probably their best remaining linebacker, Dante Hightower, and then one of their offensive linemen, 2 running backs. Marcus Cannon, we talked about, one of their offensive tackles. I mean, what's going on up there?
Well, I think, it's just maybe they're the first ones out of the gate. I don't know that it's going to be heavily slanted towards Patriots that are opting out. I think that we're going to see a pretty significant number of players opt out before all is said and done. Just speaking with like the NFLPA head doc as an example, when I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, he called football a petri dish for spreading this kind of disease. Like it's so conducive to spread. And I think people recognize what's happening. I mean, if you look at what happened with the Marlins in baseball, and then you think of what baseball is versus what football is, and the number of people involved, the contact nature of the sport, so many people in the operation that are essential to keep it going, that players are looking at this and trying to weigh whether it's worth kind of going into the fray. So I don't know that New England is at the end of the day is going to stick out. Early on, obviously, they have a lot more guys than the rest of them, but I think more are coming all across the league.
Now, Tim, obviously there's rules and sort of delineations within this opt-out rule. Like if you've got a sick family member or with Goodwin just having a child and things like that, they get more money, a little bit more money than just guys who say, I just don't feel comfortable, I'm just going to opt out. Isn't it like $350,000 to $150,000 in salary or something like that?
Yes. So if you're considered high risk, then you get the $350,000 and you get an accrued season. And I don't think that Goodwin's going to fit into that category. I think that he's going to end up being the $150,000. And my understanding from reading the language from the NFL is that that's not an accrued season for those guys. So it's a pretty distinct difference between which category you're in. It matters whether your contract tolls or does not toll, and the amount of money that you're getting.
The interesting thing about that is who makes the determination. What if a guy says, wait a minute, no, I'm definitely doing this for the right reason.
My grandmother lives with me, and she's got emphysema or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, so isn't there a way for these guys to skirt it so they get paid the higher figure?
They have it in the language about the specific things that you have to hit and like what the thresholds are for it. But yeah, to your point, I mean, maybe there is a degree of this being kind of arbitrary, and where is that point of delineation? I mean, just one of like the many things nobody thought we'd be thinking about at this point heading into training camp. It's just a crazy year, and I think everybody's just trying to do their best to make it work.
Of course, the Bears lose their run-stuffing defensive lineman Eddie Goldman. He opts out. That's a big loss for that defense, which is one of the best in the league. And so now you look at the Bears situation.
Star Latulele, I think, was it in Denver?
Yes, and the Ravens, they just picked up Andre Smith last year, the veteran Cincinnati first-round draft pick from the Bengals years ago, and he's opted out, and he hasn't even played a game for him. They got him during the playoff run last year, so that's offensive lineman depth right there for the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, the defending AFC champs.
Yeah, and this is going to be a year clearly unlike any other, and it's becoming more clear by the day, and this applies to football, but also all the other sports, that this is really just about staying healthy and avoiding outbreaks. I mean, that's a big part of what this season is about. If you can keep your team on the field and kind of COVID-free, then you have a huge advantage over other teams that are likely going to struggle in that respect. And so, this is a season that's so hard to gauge. Like, who do you even put as the favorite? Because everything, there's so many variables at play, and there's so many ways that this can break. And you're starting to see that as guys are coming in, guys are opting out, and you don't know what to expect really from one day to the next.
Latulele was with the Bills, not Denver.
Exactly.
My mistake. But anyway, Tim, what's Doug Peterson saying about all these different things being thrown at him, that they've obviously never had to deal with before?
He's taking a very rosy approach. I mean, when we spoke with him yesterday, it was just thanking all of the people in the organization and all the effort that got put in for them to have these protocols and safety measures at the NovaCare facility in Lincoln Financial Field, and basically saying that he feels extremely safe when he's at the complex, and that that they're in a good position to succeed. I mean, that's basically his messaging, and part of me feels like it needs to be a little bit more realistic, that we can't be speaking necessarily in like glowing, rosy terms about the reality. That we have to be very much rooted in reality, and so I just wonder. There's some coaches in baseball, as an example. I heard a coach today. It's like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, I'm scared. Like, people are scared. Like, this is an unprecedented situation, and maybe NFL coaches and Peterson specifically will start talking in those kind of manners. But at least for right now, as it starts out, everybody is healthy by at least current accounts, and he's painting pretty bright picture about what's happening, at least so far, that they're feeling safe about what's happening inside the NovaCare.
Carson Wentz going to have a little chip on his shoulder after this NFL top 100 list situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he needs motivation, he's got it.
Right.
These guys do pull from the well wherever they can to find something that'll give them an extra edge. And he's got a couple things going for him right now. I think, he's got the question over him of, it was a third straight season. Obviously, it was a fluke injury that happened in that Seattle game, but it was the third straight season that he wasn't able to finish on his own terms. They drafted a quarterback in the second round. That literally unprecedented. That has never happened before, where a guy that got drafted in the top two had somebody drafted within the first two rounds a couple of years later when he was cemented as the starter. I mean, so this is that he can pull from and can be pushed by, with Jalen Hurts right behind him. And sure, if he wants to look at a ranking too, where where you see all these other guys that you think that you're superior to, and you don't even pop up on the list when you were number 3, I think, a couple of years ago. Yeah. He's got that going for him too.
The great Tim McManus. I know you got to run, and you got a lot of zoom. And I'll play this for you because we always like to go old school and play some of the greatest hits from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and today, Tim. But I had this loaded in my system, and now that I got my system back, I want to play the song that's become, and I had this in here for years, but it's more apropos now than ever. The great Aretha Franklin, Harry, singing Who's Zooming Who, baby? One of my favorites, man.
Don't you miss this,
Tim? I wish I had my drop
Tim?
machine right now.
Who's Zooming Who, Tim?
Exactly. I wish I had my drop machine right now, Tony.
I got it right here.
Oh, you miss this, don't you, Tim?
Yes, he does.
I love doing the freestyle.
Exactly right. Let's put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Tim McManus, zooming everybody uptown, downtown, crosstown, all around the big town, coast to coast, barrow to barrow, border to border, from sea to shining sea. Hey, Tim, good to talk to you, man. Thanks for a couple of minutes, man.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
There he is, the great T-Mac. Sorry. It's good stuff, man. I had that